episode 9 of Mockpod.
Episode 9. Almost said double figures, bro.
Almost, yeah.
It's exciting times.
You wanted to talk about the music that we use.
Yeah, I just thought, well, what do you think of when you hear that intro music that we...
I don't know, light, jovial fun, that's all. What do you think of?
I think of a Bruce Lee film from the 80s. Yeah, it gives me that feeling of kind of like nostalgia. That's why I really like it, yeah. Because, I mean, it's just a piece of Creative Commons music, but I quite like it.
Yeah, I think it's from the subcontinent, actually. But, no, it's got an interesting sort of flavour about it, I guess.
So it's been an interesting week.
Yeah, we had a great experience. Like, let's dive right into it. Like, we both went and did cryotherapy this week.
And had a first experience.
Yeah, and we've held off on it for a while because we were going to do this sort of... session at a fitness expo, and in the end they ran out of gas, so we ended up having to delay it. But now we got around to doing it, and it was an incredible experience. To set it up, do you want to define what cryotherapy is sort of about, basically?
Yeah, so if you haven't seen it before, I mean, like a lot of athletes and sort of professional sports people are using these right now to enhance recovery and to basically and to fix a lot of ailments, you know. And the whole idea is, I guess, you use liquid nitrogen to drop your body over very short times, like 3 minutes or so. I don't know if they do longer ones, maybe you know this.
Yeah, well, Sports Science says 2 to 5 is fine, but I guess most businesses sit in the middle because they feel it's safer to go 3 minutes.
Yeah, obviously they want to operate in parameters of safety, but I mean, we went down to 196 degrees Celsius. And
minus 196
minus
degrees Celsius, but typically it's done to about 150 to 160 degrees Celsius.
Yeah, and I mean, there's been some research, I think, that you said was... that you start getting like therapeutic benefit beyond like minus 160 or something like this.
Basically. That missed. Anyway, talk about your actual experience of it. So you walk into the chamber. Yeah, so we're going to upload some photos, I think, on this.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, you know, it's not something that's it's not scary, but it's certainly a very foreign feeling. You know,
okay, so you weren't scared at all?
I wasn't scared, but
even when you signed the 5-page waiver,
that was pretty funny. So I guess that's part of the experience. That yeah, certainly. I was like, So a lot of people are going to look at this waiver, which literally is 5 pages.
It covers any condition that could occur,
pretty much, and you have to sign, you know, all your legal rights away, to anything that might go wrong.
Yeah, no litigious reaction.
But you know what, like. I've signed those things before. You've signed those things before. You know, you sign those things going skydiving, for example.
Yeah, that's right.
There's a lesser chance of dying than if you cross the road. You know, so at the end of the day, like that's a very small part of it. But being in there, So I mean,
what did you have? What did you wear inside? Just so.
Oh yeah, so I mean, obviously you just wear gloves, socks, and underwear. So apparently that's to prevent chilblain. Which I'm guessing is like a short-term version of frostbite or something like this, but
I mean, extremities.
Look, I don't really like the idea of my privates being exposed to extreme cold.
Funnily enough, the privates weren't affected that much,
but they weren't. No,
because you think they're going to be really like.
But again, they're in your core though. They're part of your core, so to speak. So it makes sense. True. But So
you were grabbing your nuts, weren't you?
No.
Oh, okay. I was just
no.
Just
I was just
keeping them warm,
floating freely. It was nice.
Oh, okay.
But. So and then you walk into this tiny little chamber. It's just big enough for you, basically. Yep. You can't really move too much in there. But
and yet your head is outside the top of it.
Yeah, so they can raise or lower it, right? So obviously your head is meant to be out of it simply so you don't breathe in the liquid nitrogen.
Yeah, so they can raise or lower the platform. That is,
the platform. Yeah, so. It was difficult for them to gauge because of my long beard, but anyway. So
and you had your glasses on. I seriously thought your glasses were going to crack or something.
Yeah, there were the plastic. You know, plastics don't really crack too much.
But
I
guess
if they were glass, it'd be interesting. But pretty slowly, I think it lower that temperature down. Because they start pumping in that liquid nitrogen, and then it starts off probably at about minus, I think, 90 or something like this, and then over the space of about. Yeah, a minute and a half. It really gets down.
How did you feel towards the end? The last minute of the 3 minutes?
The best way to describe it, like, I mean, and I was sort of vocalizing this to you as I was experiencing it, was...
You gently smiling,
the first sort of minute or so, like, it basically feels like you're walking in, very slowly, walking into a massive meat locker or a cold room, at a bottle where you would normally pick up beer. And then, what's interesting, I guess, is over the next minute or so, it just starts to really, really get cold. So it's like... it almost multiplies that feeling of when you feel like, oh, okay, like it's pretty damn cold here, and then when you think it really can't get too much colder, it does. It gets really, really cold, and
It's colder than you think, but at the same time, you manage it better than you think.
Yeah, well,
Does that make sense?
Well, we know the human body's capable of, managing a lot of different things.
Yeah, great adaptation.
Great adaptation, yeah. And, so what about you? I mean, how did you find the experience?
Well, I went in with some injury. So the interesting thing is I went in with muscle soreness in the calf. So I was limping for 3 days straight before it, literally limping where I had to take time off work. So what happened was when I went in, I was wondering if it's going to help it or not. And there was an immediate numbing effect, which we talked about. So as soon as you get out, I think for a good hour, it was still really nice and cold. But then as soon as that sort of effect wore off, it did return to pain again. So the next day, I was still sort of limping a bit. But what's interesting is 2 days after the treatment, I only had the 1 3-minute cryotherapy. It literally was okay. I could walk around fine. To the point that the doc I was seeing was saying, oh, geez, you're fine again, and like I had to have an ultrasound on it and everything. So what's interesting is that...
This is before, you did ultrasound before?
No, I did the ultrasound 2 days after
the cryotherapy.
And it was all good. So it's interesting. I mean, I didn't deliberately sort of time it that way. It just happened to be that I booked that cryotherapy on a week where I really injured my calf.
Yeah.
And, what's interesting is that... they talk about the placebo effect, right?
Yeah.
Like, if something's placebo anyway, and it still works for you, what's wrong with that?
Nothing's wrong with that.
Yeah.
But placebo effect is real, and it's been shown to work, yeah.
So, I mean, obviously, you've had some experiences in medicine and whatnot, and I guess, it's got to do with funding and whatnot, and that's why...
I guess my question for you is, if you... I mean, this is obviously conjecture, but if you hadn't had the cryotherapy... Would you be limping right now? A week later?
I reckon I would be, because often... See, it's hard to say. Like, if I did a grade 1, what they call grade 1, like a 10% tear of...
Yeah. So I think you'd definitely be limping still.
Yeah, well, they say 7 to 10 days to recover from that. And honestly, I healed within, 5 days of the initial injury. So, it's really hard to say. My own subjective take on it is it really helped. How much it helped, I can't quantify, but it definitely helped in my mind. I felt like 2 days...
It definitely didn't hurt. Either.
No, it didn't hurt, and it was. I was really happy that I went in with an injury because I got to test it out. Because
I was moderately injured as well. Not really
right, you
injured,
were too.
But I mean what was it? The Sunday before.
What did you feel going in, and what did you feel going out?
Yeah, well, I mean, the Sunday before, it ended up doing this 32-kilometer charity walk. The interesting thing for me, I guess, the pain that I felt, it didn't really, or the tightness, I should say, it didn't really return 100%. So.
In other words, you were relieved.
Yeah, so that day, it probably came back maybe about 50%, and then the next day, didn't feel anything.
Good as gold, eh?
Now, again, I'd be thinking, if I hadn't had that, I probably still would have felt full recovery after about 2 days. So I reckon it probably sped my recovery up, but again, this is just conjecture.
Interesting. Yeah, so, the whole cryotherapy thing, it's come up in movies before, like Han Solo.
Yeah,
it was frozen
he was frozen in carbonite or something.
Yeah, that was Empire Strikes Back and the original trilogy, probably the only good set of Star Wars movies in my mind anyway. Well, the original are the best.
It's very hard to surpass.
Yeah, I mean, not to say that modern ones aren't great, but so I succumbed this week to actually a bit of the whole marketing.
You were watching a bit of Star Wars.
Not only was I watching it, I got so frustrated watching these 2011 Blu-ray edition discs that I actually went online and I ordered Return of the Jedi, the theatrical edition.
Really?
Yeah, so George Lucas got me again. Yeah, I got the DVD. So basically, look, there's been rorted, essentially, because I fell... Look, I watched Return of the Jedi, and every Star Wars fan knows this. At the end of Return of the Jedi, there's this ghostly image where Luke Skywalker's celebrating at the Ewok village, and you've got an image here of Yoda.
All the ghosts are
you've got Yoda, you've got an elderly Obi-Wan Kenobi played by Alec Guinness, and you've got a young-ass Hayden Christensen as Anakin, and it's terrible.
It's awful.
As many people comment, it doesn't match.
Why is it awful? Is it awful because it's Hayden Christensen? Because of the new films that were getting released, episodes 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, he decided to touch up.
He was so happy with all these new effects and stuff. He's like, oh man, let's go back and redo all these effects in the originals. Yeah. And it just doesn't work because everything in the originals, is, like...
Well, there's a great deal of puppetry in the originals.
Yeah.
And they work because
Jim Henson's fabulous puppetry.
And they're exactly. And they work because there's no other intruding elements. However, when you introduce CGI, you almost then highlight the puppetry as a little bit sort of ancient and old.
That's right.
So it makes it worse. And look, one of the most egregious things is Star Wars Episode 4. Did Han shoot first? Right? They call it the Han shot first conspiracy or whatever you want to call it.
You're talking about the scene where he's with Greedo.
Yeah, because in the original theatrical run, Greedo sits down opposite Han just shoots him, right? So there's a connotation is a bit more cold-blooded, which it is. It's a sort of like I guess a bounty hunter kind of thing.
Yeah.
But anyway, then that's the first opportunity George Lucas has to alter that. He digitizes Harrison Ford, Han Solo, so he shifts his head and dodges Greedo's bullet. So Greedo shot first, and Han shoots in reaction, which conveys this idea that he only shoots people when he's shot at.
So he's better, like
yeah. And then in the Blu-ray version, it's changed again, so it's almost simultaneous. Although Greedo shoots just before again,
but he still has that little shift of his head.
Oh, well, I showed you that shift of the head, that digitalized shift. It looks terrible. So I don't know what to make of this, except to say director's cuts and all that. It's a real problematic area. Do you know where director's cut started from, by the way?
Not really, no.
So, sort of, it really relates to this great classic Western called The Wild Bunch, which I think I talked to you about. And it's made in 1969, but in 1974, this guy named Jerry Harvey...
Jerry Harvey?
No.
I used to work for Jerry Harvey.
No, not the Australian entrepreneur Jerry Harvey. He was actually a film buff who worked for something called the Z Channel in American English, or Z Channel in Australian and British English. And it was a famous pay-per-view channel in the 70s, showed art house classic cinema. And in any case, he found this Wild Bunch print, which had 10 minutes of extra footage, which was violent footage that was excised from the theatrical run. He showcased this in a limited theatre run with approval of the director, and it did, great guns as far as,
I was hoping you'd use that.
Yeah. So it did really well, and then it came out again on his Z channel, and it popularised this notion of the director's cut. And this guy Jerry Harvey ended up seeking out a lot of things, and he's famous for restoring, for example, Sergio Leone's Once Upon a Time in America.
I do believe you used to run a little social club called Films Under 2 Hours, which...
That's true.
Which basically meant that you would go and see films that were only and exclusively under 2 hours.
Well,
so how does this love of director's cuts fit into that paradigm? That's what my question is.
That's a very good question. See, that all stems from when I was watching so many films growing up that I just could not find the time to watch 4-hour epics after 4-hour epics, right? So I'd only watch something like Lawrence of Arabia once because I just couldn't, keep up with all the movies I wanted to watch.
Yeah.
And then I read a comment that Alfred Hitchcock believed that the length of a theatrical film should be equal to the length of holding the human bladder. And I really believe in that.
That's pretty fair. I don't want to pee.
No, you don't want to pee in middle of the film. And
I don't want to hold it either because I'm just going to be uncomfortable.
And you're not going to concentrate on the film.
That's right.
So I really subscribe to that theory. Now, and so I guess that's where my viewing sort of bias towards 2 hours and under films comes from.
Yeah.
Now, when I talk about these 4-hour director's cuts and all that, they're okay for home because you can stop, pause it, and go home. You can
go take a pee,
Yeah, so I'm still against 4-hour films in the movies, but at home, they're okay.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
For example, I haven't seen Once Upon a Time in America. I know of the films. Got
De Niro, Sergio Leone, and you know what? It's got Ennio Morricone, probably the greatest film composer of all time.
That's fascinating that it's got those people because it doesn't
so good.
Strike me as anywhere near similar to the Good, the Bad, and Ugly series.
Yeah,
it's totally different.
No, it's a gangster epic set in Prohibition era.
Yeah.
James Woods.
Jimmy Woods.
James Woods is in it.
You met Jimmy Woods.
I have met James Woods.
I'd like to meet Jimmy Woods. He's a cool dude.
I met James Woods, and he's in the film. De Niro's in the film. Elizabeth McGovern's in the film, and a young Jennifer Connelly is in the film.
You're joking.
Yeah, she's just
a kid or something.
That's right.
Huh?
She's in the film,
I think I have to see it. But
and there's this famous music track called Deborah's Theme that everyone must hear. It's probably the greatest film track of all time. Anyway, like Ridley Scott said in his commentary to Alien, that his theatrical cut was the director's cut. But then they released an Alien special edition, and he acknowledged that it was just a marketing ploy. Now, when a director actually acknowledges that, I don't know, it calls you to question every other cut released by a director.
Well, that's right. So, like, I definitely don't subscribe too much to director's cuts, but there is that thing where, like, a good example is Lord of the Rings, right? Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings.
My gosh.
Do you like Lord of the Rings? The 9 hours of
Can I just say a big
Middle-earth?
Can I just say a big no?
It's too much for you.
I can't take it. I fell asleep in the cinema. I fell asleep at home.
But you grew up with fantasy. I remember you enjoying,
I love my fantasy.
Krull or
I love
Conan.
Okay, I do love a lot of these fans. Look, you're dead right. I just can't take a film of that oppressive length.
See, okay, look, I agree.
And the ending after the ending. How many epilogues do you need for a film? Okay,
it's a very good point. Now, but here's what I think. Like, that sort of thing is where, again, it doesn't really matter to me for that whether or not it was Peter Jackson's vision to put 4.5 hours worth of movie together or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Or, the fact that he just recorded all this and spent all this money and he's like, look, I want people to see it.
So you happy just to witness extra footage?
Exactly. That's my point. And I think for a lot of people with director's cuts these days, it's actually not so much about the vision anymore. It's just about your hunger for material. Because, put it this way, I love Lord of the Rings and I love Middle-earth.
And how do you like the extended edition?
Well, I actually really enjoyed them.
Oh, you did? So you like sitting in your backside for 6 hours, whatever it is.
It's like you said, though. Because you're at home, you can just pause and resume whenever you want. Okay. So the issue, I guess what it is, again, it's like having a smorgasbord of just material.
But did you feel ripped off? Like, they're making you buy again because, there's this funny territory.
I only bought the special edition. I didn't buy the normal because I knew they'd do that, right?
Yeah, because there's special editions, there's extended editions, there's all this kind of bull crap that's not even director's cuts now. You're talking about multiple editions of films.
No, I mean, and these days, I guess we're lucky because we do live in an era where, I mean, Australians are the king of downloaders, but where you can actually preview films and see if you want to buy them and that sort of stuff, and then go and purchase them.
I don't download them. But
no, I don't either. But just theoretically,
just theoretically.
But the other ones that I think of in that sort of same realm are it's a bit of a random one, but
go on.
The Watchmen. Did you enjoy The Watchmen?
Yeah, The Watchmen had an extended cut as well. It had an
extended cut also, and again, I really liked it.
Oh, look.
Only because I liked the original so much that it just gave me
all you're telling me is that any marketing your studio affords you, you're lapping it up.
No, I think, again...
You look at that special edition, you're lapping it up.
Lapping it up like a little poodle.
Man, no. If it's $40 or $50, you're more than happy to pay for it.
No, see, again, but what it is, though, it's only universes that I'm just infatuated with. That's really what it comes down to,
Look,
I mean, we're talking to a guy who's just bought George Lucas's theatrical
2004 cut of Return of the Jedi.
I
get to cut Hayden Christensen out of the ending of that movie.
It's very good.
Is that not worth it?
It's worth it.
That's totally worth the money, right?
Yeah. I mean, do you have any favourite director's cuts that you really?
Oh, look, but here's the thing: that final cut of Blade Runner. Just go back to that. That's not the one that made the impact on me. The 1991 director's cut of Blade Runner did make an impact on me. So for me, that was a major thing, and I take that as my favourite cut of regardless of what the filmmaker says. So I think we need to take a bit more agency and actually select the version that means the most to you. Yeah. Can I just say one of the most incredible director's cuts of all time is Tony Scott's 1990 Revenge. Tony Scott with starring Kevin Costner.
Probably the only Tony Scott film I haven't seen.
Kevin Costner in his prime as an aviator. He's just retired. He goes to visit his wealthy pal Tibby, who's a crime boss in Mexico, played by Anthony Quinn. The problem is he happens to become infatuated with Tibby's wife, played by Madeline Stowe, and mayhem, chaos. I mean, basically, I don't even want to say anymore, but bloodbaths occur. But the original cut was like 2 hours on. He actually cut 20 to 30 minutes out of it. I can't remember how much. And it resulted in a shorter cut. I really rate that. He shortened his cut from 2 hours down to 105 minutes, something like that. And it's a masterpiece because he made that back-to-back with True Romance. He followed that with True Romance. And so these two love stories, if you like, from a Tony Scott perspective on the world, I don't know. To me, they represent the high point of, director's cuts and things like that. Anytime a director shortens their cut, basically.
Yeah. That's actually very, very cool that he did that. It's something you don't normally think about, that a director would want to shorten their pieces. Travel.
Yeah. Can we change topic for a second?
Sure.
We're talking about winning the lotto the other day. I think we were sitting in the car and just talking about, I think, there's this, I don't know if it's an urban myth, but there's this general thought that people who win the lotto end up, on the whole, unhappier after a while, right? This is what a lot of people talk about.
Well, is it just because people think about the whole money doesn't make you happy thing?
There's that, and also I think there's been some studies out, and we talked about how if we ever won the lotto, not that we're lotto players, but
you got to play to win.
Yeah. If we ever won money or received money, or were lucky enough to be a recipient of a great deal of funds, we wouldn't waste it away. And we were saying we can't understand it when people do, and so I looked up a bit of sort of research on it, and
but I have heard stories about, in particular, where there's two main things that happen. One is that it starts to break down your relationships with people because, your friends, your family, whatever, they
want money from you.
Well,
yeah, but what if
it changes that relationship, the dynamic, because they're like, well, you've just let's say you've just received a lump sum of 25 million.
Yeah. Can I tell you a case study about George and Beryl Keats? In 2012, they won £3.5 million. They gave £250,000 to each of their 4 sons, £10,000 to each of their 9 grandchildren. They still have money left over, and everything's okay. That's a good result. So, can I throw some case studies at you? This is a good way to analyse it. Rather than looking at a blanket thing, let's look at specific things.
Give me a sad story.
Okay, here's a sad story then. So, Lara and Roger Griffiths, in 2006, they won £1.8 million, okay? They bought their dream home, Porsche. They bought 2 more properties to rent out, very smart, I would say. They got into the stock market. Again, pretty judicious, actions. Roger spent £25,000 making a record with his college band. That was a dream he always had.
Okay.
6 years later, the entire fortune was gone.
Oh.
Yeah. Lara, his wife...
But they had investments and stuff, so they were okay.
Yeah, but Lara... here's the spanner in the works. Lara confronted Roger over emails that he was sending to another woman.
Oh.
So their 14-year marriage dissolved, and a freak fire also gutted their house.
Ooh. Actually, I think I might have heard about that.
Yeah, have you?
Or perhaps it's just
pretty
a common
bad
story where...
Well, it's a pretty bad story.
A house gets burnt down mysteriously.
Yeah.
So there's this workplace, right? This is probably about 2 years old. So this workplace, there's a syndicate.
Oh,
so all the
employees got together and bought a ticket.
Yeah, and they did this for 10, 15 years, right? So every week they'd run their syndicate, okay, and then one day one of them wins, but what they didn't realise is that
he bought the ticket under his name.
No, there was a side syndicate. There were 2 syndicates running.
Oh,
okay, so you are person A, part of the main syndicate,
and then person B had a secondary.
I'm person B. Now I'm in the main syndicate, but I've also got a subsidiary second syndicate,
which involves select people.
Yeah, so say about half of the first group. So that's what it was, right?
Don't cross over.
Yeah. So what ended up happening was Syndicate B won, and then Syndicate A. I think there was only a few of them left out, 1 or 2 of them left out.
Yeah.
Syndicate A found out about it and said, "Hey, I'm part of the syndicate." And they said, "Oh, I'm sorry, man, it was a separate syndicate."
Yeah. But they didn't know about that.
He didn't know about it, so he took him to court.
Oh, wow.
Now, I don't know I don't think he won.
Yeah.
But
he couldn't have won.
No, but how bad is that?
That's awful. That's almost betrayal. I'd almost class that as betrayal. Yeah.
Yeah, anyway, so I guess we should wrap this up. It's been a pretty hefty episode on... there's been some ups, been some downs.
A lot of interesting stories, I think.
That's some interesting stuff,
Yeah. Okay. Episode 9.
All right. Mockpod.
2 brothers and Mike.
2 brothers and a mic.